Welcome back to Killer Fun, where we explore the intersection of crime and entertainment every other week. I'm Christy.
And I'm Jackie.
And today we are talking about unstable, criminally grief-stricken.
Criminally grief-stricken? That's great.
Well, I mean,
it's perfect.
It's the only crime in this is because somebody is sad.
Is sad.
And it's not even like bad crime, which is kind of fun to talk about.
Well, that's why this is so fun, because it's like, it's almost crimey. It's a little crimey.
Uh-huh.
It's crimey adjacent.
Right. Yeah.
But there's something about it. And it's like, I love the show.
Uh-huh. Well, because Rob Lowe hasn't changed in 40 freaking years.
Right?
I mean, barely.
Not at all.
So Hulu has been trying to get me to watch St. Elmo's Fire. I don't know why, but it keeps coming up in the movies recommended for you.
That's so funny.
From the 80s, which Rob Lowe is in.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he looks exactly the same in that picture, except his hair is shorter and unstable, and there are a few more like smile lines.
Right.
Other than that, he looks the same.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, he started off good.
I mean.
You know what I mean?
I have a friend, and as she would say, "Hi, Elaine, I wouldn't kick him out of bed." That was her. She was like, "I wouldn't kick him out of bed.
Wouldn't kick him out." Mm-hmm.
I mean, I probably would because I'm married.
Well, that's true. But
were I not married?
Yes, point taken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's funny. I had a bit of an unstable moment today.
Oh.
I did.
I'm sorry. And is it funny?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
it was very Ellis. Very Ellis.
Uh-huh.
If Ellis was a woman who shaved. So, okay, I was out in the sun today. Got a little sun. Got a little color. I got in the shower. I thought to myself, oh, I'm going to shave. And then I thought, but I just got the sun. So I can't shave. Because, it lessens the tan.
Right.
Then I thought to myself, that's a wife's tale. Why in the world do I still believe that? Why do I think it's a wives' tale? Well, because I've never checked it out. I had a whole conversation with myself back and forth about whether this was like a thing or not. And so I ended up making other choices and moving on with my life, but then I couldn't let it go. So I Googled it, and you would think that this is easy to find. I did not do a deep dive. I'm like, this is like something anyone who grew up in the 80s and 90s believed wholeheartly, right?
Yes.
And
you shave before you go in the sun, not after, because you don't want to shave your tan off.
Right, exactly. And I found only two sources that dealt with actual suntan.
Okay.
There's a lot of sources about fake tanning,
right,
and shaving. Okay, but like two sources. Bic, the razor company, says, go ahead, it's no problem. The tan goes way deeper than that. Another site dedicated to safe tanning, like actual tanning beds, says absolutely not. You will not shave off the whole tan, but the top layer does go, and it does take the shine off of it, if you will. And I was like, really? The tanning bed people and the Bic people are the only two people commenting on this. I cannot believe it.
They're the only two people who have, to use an idiom that's very apt, have skin in the game.
Exactly. So there's still not an answer. So if you have an answer for my unstable moment, please tell me. As it is, I am all natural because didn't want to lose that tan.
Oh. Okay.
It was a whole moment.
It was a whole moment. My goodness. All right. Well, we mentioned that Rob Lowe is in this.
Yes.
So let's talk about this cast. So Rob Lowe is Ellis Dragon. Jackson is John Owen Lowe, Rob Lowe's real life son.
Yeah, which is super fun to see them together.
Super fun. And that part of the inspiration for this show was that John Owen really did troll his dad on social media. And give him a hard time on social media. And so they kind of use that to springboard into the show.
That's funny.
It is funny. And I'm like, that's great. So Rob told Tadum, which is the blog for Netflix where they talk about their shows. Tadum.
Tadum.
Like the sound.
Like the sound.
Yeah. It's not just a son making fun of a dad, Rob tells Tadum. It's a very specific type of son making fun of a very specific type of dad. We realize that the dad had to be a known figure, has to be generally liked in the world, which really frustrates the son when he sees his dad acting like a buffoon.
That's great.
They didn't want him to be an actor because Rob Lowe is an actor. They didn't want him to be like president. So they felt like a tech billionaire was very now.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
It went right alongside and made for some pretty scenery because all of their corporate offices, they're always so pretty.
They're just lovely and, you know, open, but they still have offices, but they all have windows that open to, you know, gardens and
natural light and trees and things.
yes. In real life, John Owen plays the piano very well.
Okay.
But they decided that a flautist was funnier.
Oh, it definitely is.
Much funnier. John Owen said, "It's hard to look cool playing the flute. Lizzo does it, but there's not many other people who can do it. I certainly can't." Like, good for you, dude.
Yeah.
Good for you.
It was really funny, and I kind of did feel bad a little bit because they made so much fun of those who do play the flute, and yet on the other hand, it was freaking funny.
It was funny.
It was great. And he's right. Lizzo does look cool doing it. Not many people can pull that off, which is what makes Lizzo Lizzo.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Cyan Clifford is Anna, the CFO who's desperately trying to figure out how to keep Ellis in charge of the company that he created.
Yes.
She had a prolific theater career in London before she jumped to television, and her biggest role in this is in Fleabag. She was a sister
I've never
in that.
seen her before, and she was so funny.
She's really funny. Fleabag's interesting.
Okay.
It's good. Anybody who watches it'll be like, oh, I love Fleabag. But it's one of those like difficult to watch shows because the protagonist is like, you keep thinking, well, that's bad luck, but that's bad choices. What are you doing?
Right. Yeah. Like
There's a lot of that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
It takes a lot of patience.
It's hard when you have to have patience for like the main character.
Yeah. But it was freaking funny. So, yeah. Emma Ferreira is Ruby, the laboratory scientist who's working on things. Her feature film debut was a movie I've never heard of, Learn to Swim, but Unstable is her first TV gig.
Cool.
And she was named the Toronto International Film Festival Rising Star. She was one of them in 2021.
Oh.
So she's pretty new to the scene.
Cool.
The other scientist in the laboratory is Rachel Marsh, and she's playing Luna. If she looks familiar, it's because she's been in NCIS Los Angeles.
Okay.
So I was like,
That makes sense.
And then the only other person that we're going to chat about today is very, very familiar face, almost as familiar as Rob Lowe, and that is Fred Armisen as Leslie, the therapist.
Okay, really? That I don't really recognize him so much.
Oh, really?
No.
Because he was on Saturday Night Live, Portlandia. He was Uncle Fester in Wednesday.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I thought you might recognize Wednesday.
I didn't recognize him from that. I mean, I
Okay.
watched Wednesday, but I didn't really quite
Okay, so
recognize him.
Oh.
And I don't really remember him from Saturday Night Live. Oh, well. Well, this guy was really good in the show, and I thought he was freaking hysterical. So,
yeah, he's got a very earnest sort of way about him in his funniness. I don't know. It's very like over the top, but still subtle. I don't know. It's hard to explain.
yeah, I get it. Whatever. I get it. He's definitely memorable.
Yes.
When you see him.
Yes.
But I just don't think I ever saw him before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The kind of absurdist, I think it would have of Portlandia, I thought might have
Never
appealed
watched
to
it.
you. Yeah, I didn't like it that much,
I
but
never
a lot of
watched
people
it.
loved it. It was like a very much a cult favorite.
Okay.
So
Interesting. I mean, I did watch Wednesday, but obviously that's such a makeup thing that I
Heavy.
probably
Right.
didn't. If I didn't know him before, I wouldn't have.
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Interesting. Well, now I'm going to have to go back through his catalog and be like, oh, wait, he was in Anchorman.
No, yeah.
I'm scrolling.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, some memory might be coming back about this. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. There we
Revisit.
go.
I'll
All right.
revisit. Fred, I'm revisiting you, man. I'm coming. I'm late,
But you're here for the
but
party.
I'm here. I'm here. Better late than pregnant. Sorry, Golden Girls joke.
Oh, but it's so true. That's why it's funny.
It's funny because it's true.
All right, let's recap.
Yeah, let's recap.
Brilliant and gutted. That is Stricken after the unexpected loss of his wife of 30 years. To be fair, he was brilliant before, and only the gutted bit is new. Without the mediation that his wife provided, Ellis is distracted at work at his own tech company. He's utterly floundering in his off time. He's unable to navigate healthy relationship with his son, Jackson. Only as the situation at the biotech giant Dragon becomes tenuous enough that Ellis may lose control of the company that he built is anyone able to convince Jackson to return to Los Angeles from his starving artist flute instructor life in New York City.
Flute instructor life. His starving artist.
I mean, literally. We'll get there.
Oh, for real.
The two men are so different in almost every way, but their grief over a person that they both adored and a love of science that Jackson tries to deny provides some common ground. Did I mention that Ellis kidnapped his therapist and has him in the basement?
You did not.
There's the crime. I can see why audiences like this much more than critics, because critics don't tend to like funny stuff that much.
It's true. And this is very, I feel like it's just made for the audience. Like this is something that's like, it's art for the pleasing of the people.
That's right. They go for the obvious jokes.
Yeah.
And they go for some less obvious jokes.
They do.
They go for the obvious joke also every time.
But they also pull it off.
They do it. It's so funny.
And you have to be able to pull it off. And they do every time.
Agreed. So grief is difficult to navigate because people all handle it so very differently. Ellis threw himself into work, but ignored his priorities there. Jackson abandoned his trained work, science, to follow his passion, but far from anyone or anything that reminded him of his sadness. And neither one of these ways of coping were particularly effective, but they did give us a glimpse at the personalities at play. But if you are suffering from grief, there is help. So there's a website called My Grief Angels, and they have lots of different types of support groups. So they have lots of online support groups. They can help connect you to local support groups. They have a chatting community. They have ones that are specific to holidays. Some people are only sad about their grief around the holidays, around times that are, so they have that for you. They have information about grief apps. People with disabilities who are suffering grief not because they lost a loved one, but because they lost the ability to be able to do something or whatever. There's all different kinds of things. And then pet loss, workplace grief. How do you grieve for somebody that you knew sort of tangentially at work, but it's still really sad because you used to spend time with this person.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of stuff like that. All available at My Grief Angels.
Very good.
If your grief has brought you to a crisis situation, don't just sit in it. Do visit crisistextline.org and you can chat or WhatsApp, or you can text to 741-741, and they have 24/7 support in the U.S. If your grief has brought you to a place where you feel like you're in crisis, you can text with somebody, you can call somebody. They have all of these available for you. Also, if you are feeling like really super in crisis, need to talk with somebody, there is a suicide hotline in the US. They finally got it down to a 3-digit number to make it easy to access. There's no having to look up an 800 number anymore. 988 will connect you with that right now.
Call or text.
Call or text. All right. With that, we'll be back with Is It True? Psychology break and real life after these messages.
So here's how it works. Christy wrecks her search history. Hey, an essay. We promise it's nothing more nefarious than a podcast. To find out what's true, some of the psychological motivations behind the characters' actions, and real-life applications that relate to our topic. I have no idea what Christy decided to look up. Could be the same thing that captured my curiosity or something I never thought of.
Is it true? So, there were a number of things that Ellis had invented that were mentioned.
Yeah, a lot. And I was like struggling to keep up. I'm just
going to talk about a couple of them.
Okay, good.
So, the bruiseless avocado. I was like,
hashtag dreams.
I mean, for real, but it kind of sort of exists.
Wait, what?
So, Tadum had an article about this. And there's a process that prevents avocados from browning for at least 10 days. And since they typically have to be shipped, to the United States from other places, especially at different times of year.
Right.
A Australian company invented a process that switches off the enzyme that causes it to ripen, turns it off temporarily so that it has time to get where it's going and then start to ripen.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. So it does so like I guess he's supposed to have then invented this enzyme because he does a lot of chemistry stuff.
Right, exactly.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know that we get those because I can't stop them from.
Oh, I'll put them in the fridge.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I do. And that does help. But then it slows it down so much that I can't necessarily time it right. So I've resorted to getting the little bags instead because they're smaller. And what I'll do is just open one and eat it for breakfast. Like I get a grapefruit spoon out and I eat it for breakfast.
With a little salt
so
on
great.
it.
Sometimes I just eat it right out of the skin.
Shell, yeah.
Yeah. And, because it's a little bag and they're little, it goes through it fast enough.
Right.
Usually.
Yeah.
But because if I get a nice, big, beautiful one, I'll screw it up. Oh. I can't get that timing right.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know why.
That's fair. It's difficult.
It is, but you are an expert.
I am only an expert because I was forced to be.
Yes.
Because my husband is a relatively new type 1 diabetic and avocados are a very safe food for him that he loves.
Yeah.
So we eat a lot of them.
You eat a lot of avocados.
I buy at least 10 a week.
It's bananas to me. That's so
at
crazy.
At least 10. Well, because we have at least one every morning with breakfast.
Right.
And then we have Taco Tuesdays, so there has to be avocados. And
for
then
sure.
there's, occasional other meals that, like, despite the fact that it was 100 degrees yesterday, I made chili and we put avocado on our chili.
Yeah, absolutely. Avocado goes with everything.
It really does. You can blend it and make like pudding and ice cream and stuff out of it.
It's really kind of crazy. I like an avocado taco, right? Like a good avocado taco is so good. It's hard to find.
It is hard to find. I do love it when they will fry slices of avocado and put them on a tortilla.
And then the fried avocado. This comes from Chewy's, and it's a chain place, but that fried avocado will make your week.
For real.
Seriously.
Like, give me the carbs and the avocado.
So good.
All right. So one of the other things that they mention is biodegradable plastic replacement made from sugarcane.
Plastic what?
Plastic replacement.
Replacement?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Yes. And okay, I was like, let me follow what you're saying. Yes.
It seemed like a replacement just did not mean anything to you for a moment there.
I think substitute was probably the word I expected you to say.
Oh, okay.
And then when you said replacement, I was like like a prosthetic, I don't. It's like it glitched a little bit, like my brain matrix just kind of glitched. Okay. True in some ways.
Yeah.
It exists because you can buy the corn. It's made out of a high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah.
And so it's like plastic.
Yes. I much prefer the corn-based plastic-like straws to paper straws.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Far.
Yes.
By far.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I like to refill the drink.
Yeah.
And you get one fill with the paper
Oh,
ones.
if that. Oh, yeah. I don't do straws a lot. Okay. And so I don't, we have some metal straws from the house in the house, but like, I don't do straws a lot. But yeah, when the paper straws that are like all pretty, I kind of love the aesthetic of it.
Yes.
And then I hate it because it doesn't function.
Yeah. I'll just drink it.
I'll just drink it. Yeah. But like, the little corn syrup kind of stuff.
So there's those, but there is sugarcane.
Oh yeah.
Plastic.
The sugarcane plastic too.
So it's basically the same kind of process.
Yeah.
Where they're making it, where they're theoretically they're biodegradable. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about that later. But they're easier to recycle too. And once they've been recycled, they don't. Anthropocene magazine, which is a magazine about chemistry.
Okay.
Said, unlike other recyclable plastics, their mechanical properties don't worsen after being reprocessed.
Oh.
So they're easier to recycle.
Yeah.
And still have a good quality product.
That's cool.
So that's kind of cool. And they can make it not only tougher, like for straws or water bottles or stuff like that, they can also make it stretchy and rubbery. So it's got a lot of different capabilities.
Yeah, which is what we need because that's
how
how plastic is. Like you make it in so many different versions.
Exactly.
That was cool.
All right. So CFO Anna is desperately trying to help Ellis retain his power at the company. And she mentions the corporate therapist that the board hired to help him. So I was like, is that even a thing?
I'm going to say yes.
Okay, well, sort of. So Dr. Natalie Jones has dubbed herself the corporate therapist. What she does is consulting, and her consulting is about therapy for things within the company. So like processes between individuals within the company.
Right.
Things like that. So from her website, consulting firm that specializes in providing professional consulting services designed to reduce workplace incivility, educational and training services which address abusive culture and dynamics, conflict resolution, managing healthy boundaries, and addressing issues with recruitment and retention.
Okay. Yeah.
It's more business centered for a corporate therapist.
Okay.
What the board actually probably got for Ellis was an executive therapist.
Okay. All right.
So Flourish Counseling says that an executive therapist helps CEOs and other C-suite executives typically find tools to help them balance their work and personal lives.
Right. Okay.
That they tend to overweight their professional life to the detriment of their personal life. And so they kind of help them with that balance.
Yeah.
And they'll do some more typical therapy things like, why are you like this? Was there something in your childhood that had caused you to be a workaholic?
Yeah.
Probably. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, and it's interesting. In his case, it was really for grief.
It was really for
But
grief.
it was also, from their perspective, get him back to work and working properly.
Right. But
so I could rationalize either way, because the corporate therapist would see that he's a disaster at work and causing chaos. Because he's not focused.
Right.
But that type of therapist wouldn't have really dealt with the grief.
Right.
So the executive therapist may go ahead and deal with the grief, even though they're more of like a professional life coach. I say that and don't come at me because life coaching started this way. It was
Right.
executive therapist called coaches there. And then
Right.
it became life coach because what you're trying to do is balance your
Right.
life. Right. And so, and then it went from there
Right.
and that's fine. But, so I could almost rationalize either way.
I know. I can
But
too, but I really think it was more about
yeah.
like, let's help you deal with your grief so that you
Healthy.
can be effective at work.
Yes, so-
rather than your relationships at work are bad
Right.
because you're grief stricken.
Yeah, I think
So-
I'm leaning that way with you. Yeah,
Yeah.
the executive therapist more likely than the corporate therapist.
Yeah, I think so.
Probably needed a whole team.
I mean,
Why not hire both?
you know what? Ellis would have been delighted with an entire team of people to talk to, I think.
I think so.
He seems like a man who likes a lot of attention.
Definitely.
It's not
Definitely.
necessarily a bad thing.
No, and what I like about this show is that he's actually pretty delightful.
Yes. I mean, yes, his
And so-
dysfunction is so endearing.
It is. He is. And because so many shows try to make it like the grief should be dismissed, or they make it so trite in some ways, but in this case, they really did a good job of making his grief for his wife endearing, and then as the show progresses, you figure out just how far and wide their relationship as a couple was to all the people around them in the company,
Right.
and that other people had severe grief they were dealing with. Like, so it's like, oh, her best friend.
Yeah.
Oh, her, like, oh, wow. That grief ran deep. So it was actually a sweet thing to get him a therapist and try to help. It wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't like get back to work.
Yeah.
It was like, we miss the old Ellis and
Yeah.
we know he's never coming back quite the same.
But
uh,
we also do need you to do your job because, it was just, I don't know,
yeah.
more well-rounded, I guess.
All right. So Jackson's childhood friend and current assistant to Ellis, Malcolm, goes to New York to try and convince Jackson to return to Los Angeles and help his dad. So while he's doing the convincing, Malcolm has taken Jackson out to dinner, which he eats rapidly because A, he's a starving artist, and B, because he doesn't like his food to touch so much that he tilts his plate and puts it on a piece of silverware so that the juices stop running from one side to the other, because if they touch, then he can't eat them anymore. He's like, it's fine if they touch, I just can't eat them then.
Everybody has a quirk.
I mean, well,
This is a pretty not uncommon.
this quirk has a name. So when
Yeah.
I was a kid, we had separated plates because one of my brothers could not stand this very thing happening.
Okay.
So we had little plates that were like
Yeah.
the way they set up frozen meals.
Okay, yeah.
Where they have little compartments.
Right.
We used them forever.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's great. I love that.
But
It's so funny.
This fear is called brumotactilophobia.
Oh, okay.
And it is a mild form of obsessive compulsive disorder.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, there's no cure for it. Maybe some exposure therapy.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Eat a casserole, something like
Get used
that.
to it all being mixed together.
Or genpack.com, which is a maker of to-go boxes and things.
Okay.
Which is
Oh,
where
yeah,
I found
yeah,
this
yeah, yeah.
information.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
They make little things like to-go boxes where you have a compartments and they like the lid touches to seal off each compartment.
Well, that's cool.
So, you can just put things in little bowls,
Yeah.
or you can have your Genpack separated container and put your food in there, and then
Perfect.
nothing has to touch.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yep.
Me, I just throw it all together.
Oh yeah, no, I like specifically like to. When I was a kid, I did eat one thing at a time,
Okay.
and I remember being like told like, yeah, you tend to do this, and then I recognized, yeah, I tend to do this, but and then I kind of just grew out of it.
Oh.
I don't know. I just stopped. I don't know if that's common. Never looked it up. Wasn't a problem. But like, now I don't necessarily do the one thing all the time.
No,
yeah.
I like to find the flavor combinations.
Yes. Like it's got, I combine the things. Yeah.
What if you put the chicken with the potato?
Yes. Like dip it. Like, yes. It's great.
It is great.
When you go out and you get the Mexican rice and then the refried beans. Those go together.
Yeah, they do. You mix that.
You mix that up.
All together.
So delicious.
So upon arriving in Los Angeles, Jackson learns that Ellis doesn't come to the office on Tuesdays. And that's because he's working with Juan in a Million Landscaping,
Yeah.
owned by Juan.
Yeah, I love it.
I love it too.
It's adorable.
He's a former philosophy professor, which makes him super endearing in all
the things.
scenes that he's in. But Ellis says this is because a variety of experiences allow him to be more creative.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I was so on board with this.
Me
and
too.
Not only that, I was kind of like, I think he's grieving more healthily than people realize.
Yeah.
It's just a timeline they don't have time for.
Right.
When I realized this is like when they started to reveal more.
Yes, well, because it's only been like 2 months since she died.
It's not been a long time.
No.
So like I was kind of like, I get why they need him to like get it together because he just doesn't have that luxury that maybe others do. But actually, yes. And it does. It spurs creativity.
Yes. Creative Live, their blog. They actually cite a study from Scientific American. Openness to new experiences is the strongest and most consistent personality trait that predicts creative achievements in the arts and sciences. Open minds.
Open minds.
They yield results. It is a true thing. It also requires some level of humility because you don't know how to do the things.
Right.
Or it's a place you've never been. You don't know how to get around. So you have a little bit of humility that helps you navigate the situation, and that spills over into other areas of your life.
Yeah. It forces you to be interactive with other people. And actually it's the only personality trait that is correlated with better judgment and predictive judgments, even in the professional world.
Right.
So it's,
Right. Well, and I mean, that's why vacations are important if you can take them.
Seriously.
Particularly if you work in a creative field. So Jackson accuses Ellis of wanting to disappear inside his grief so literally that he works on an invisibility cloak rather than a more urgent project.
This cracked me
I mean, it was so funny.
Like, what?
So is this sci-fi or is it reality?
Sci-fi. Come on. It's sci-fi.
Well, the way they do it in the show, the way they show it in the show where they have the little eye holes cut out and it's very funny. That is sci-fi.
Sci-fi.
But they're getting closer to an actual invisibility cloak. And the pictures, I'll have the pictures printed out because they print in black and white, but oh my gosh, they're kind of amazing. So it's not so cloak-like. It's more like a screen.
Okay.
But they have these screens where it's like 3 feet wide and few feet tall, and the woman is holding it in front of her, and like literally it looks like her head is floating.
It's so funny.
So they're not quite as pliable.
Yeah.
But I mean, the applications for I hate to go to war, but war are huge.
Yeah, I know. Wow.
Yeah. So Big Think said that the possibility of it became much more real in 2018 because there was a material called a broadband achromatic metal lens.
Okay.
Which bends the light in different ways than they've ever been able to do before, was developed, and they're more flexible. They're much better at bending the light than anything ever before. So it's getting much better, because the problem is what you need to do is bend the light around the object you are trying to conceal.
Yes, right.
And
like
then,
stealth technology does, kind of, yeah.
And then put it in front, the facing something else, facing out from the thing you're trying to conceal in a way that you can't tell that it's been bent.
I mean, is that really even anything that we could...
I think it is. I think it's, I mean, I don't know if it should be our top priority right now. Let's be honest. The world is on fire.
I mean, maybe it'll help us put the fire out. I don't know.
I mean, I hope so. So there's a lot of challenges, but it's much better. Here, look at the pictures though. I mean, like...
Oh, that's bananas. I mean, you can kind of see the edge.
Like, you can see the edge, but like she's got, now her pants are just like camouflage. But like,
But
and you
like
can
as a shield, it would really screw with people's minds.
I mean, if it's far enough away,
yeah.
that renders you basically invisible. Look at that, like through his hand.
Whoa, that's so weird. That's freaky.
I mean,
it's really freaky.
Literally, that's the best I've ever seen.
I mean, yeah,
like
for
that's
sure.
the closest
That's actually practical,
right?
As a small shield or something that would help people from A to B in a situation. Yeah. To like under fire,
right?
To
or bigger to hide tanks and cars and vehicles and things.
Mm-hmm. Can you imagine? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's huge. So Ellis confidently quotes Albert Einstein to the board. But did the famous physicist Albert Einstein even say creativity is intelligence having fun?
I'm going to go with no. It feels like an internet meme, but it's really great. I like this. I like it.
I like it too. It is really great.
But who said it?
Anonymous anonymous. Like literally nobody knows.
Okay.
Like it's a thing that goes around and it sounds smart. So they attribute it to Albert Einstein because he was smart.
Right.
But Medium tells us, no, it is an anonymous quote.
Okay.
Yes. But if you would like some other quotes about creativity and would like to be able to actually attribute them to somebody.
Oh, yes.
How about creativity comes from a conflict of ideas?
Oh, yeah.
Donatella Versace. Mm-hmm. Or you can't use up creativity. The more you use, the more you have. Yeah. Maya Angelou.
Oh, I love her. Mm-hmm. I love her.
That's right. All right. So Ellis is always doing something in his office that they have an infrared sauna, which I did a bunch of research on and then decided I'm not going to talk about because they never showed it. And like he stands naked in front of a window, which probably has UV coating, which probably like negates any of the effects that he thought he would get from it.
Except the fun of standing naked in front of a window, I guess.
But at least it was like a green space. It wasn't like people walking around out there. So I'm like, okay, I guess if you're gonna,
they walk in on him.
They're walking on him. So they walk in on him and doing a lot of weird stuff, including the invisibility cloak. That's one of the things they walk in on. Also, a Tibetan singing bowl.
Oh my God. Okay, please tell me this is true because it sounds amazing.
Okay, he called it a serenity jar.
Okay.
And he said it's from Tibet or somewhere or, Boston.
Because it looks like a big Boston bean pot. It's great.
Right. Yeah.
My
but
gosh.
It's like rounded and it's got the little mallet. It's actually a Tibetan singing bowl.
Okay.
Or a Himalayan bowl. Those are two names for it. Buddhist monks have used them for a long time, according to Very Well Mind. And there are some potential benefits. They can provide stress relief, help improve sleep, maybe reduce blood pressure, reduce depression. They might stimulate the immune system or give pain relief.
What?
Because, so it's not a bang. It's you take this little mallet and you run it around the edge and it does this like singing sound. Mm-hmm. And they think, nobody knows for sure, that it might be similar in frequency to what our brain waves are. And helps them smooth out if you're having a stressed time.
Right. Okay. Okay.
So, yeah.
Very fun.
Yeah. This is what you do. But you don't wear it upside down on top of your head and bang it. That is
but that sounded so much fun.
It did sound fun.
But it's interesting because once you take it off, then I can picture, yes, I've seen this before.
Yes, where
right?
And if you have a practitioner who's helping you do this, they might use it in combination with, massage or something like that, or meditation, guided meditation. And they might have more than one, might put them in a specific spot in the room.
Right.
In relation to you and do this as part of the practice.
Yeah.
There is really no good scientific evidence, but they're not a serenity jar. You don't put it on top of your head. So in those ways, he's wrong and the show is wrong. But we know this about Ellis. We know to take anything he says with a grain of salt.
He takes it to that next step. Like, but what if
He says everything so confidently that people just believe him.
Yeah, when really he's just talking about an idea he had.
All of the sources that we use to inform our discussion here on Killer Fun Podcast can be found on our social media. Join us on Facebook at Killer Fun Podcast, exploring the intersection of crime and entertainment. You can find us on Twitter at Killer Fun Pod, or you can send us an email at killerfunpodcast@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to share a link to whatever information you're looking for. We love to hear from you. You might learn a little something too. Psychology break. So Ellis looks incredibly close to tears at the very beginning. He looks at himself in the mirror. He looks like he's really about to lose it. And then he quickly talks himself out of it. Nope, we're not doing that today.
He did. He had a whole,
Which I don't know if that was very healthy, but Psychology Today, Dr. Jonathan Fader has an article that basically the only way you're going to get out of a bad mood is to talk yourself out of it.
I have to agree with that.
Research in behavioral psychology indicates that our actions influence our emotional state, not the other way around. So there are 3 things you can do to immediately improve your mood.
Yeah.
So if you're having a bad day, you don't just have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, we're not doing that today.
Yeah.
I mean, if it works for you,
all right.
I mean, I guess, but I would say didn't entirely work for Ellis in the ways maybe, I mean, it did. He wasn't weeping.
It depends on what he meant. I think he just meant, nope, we're not crying today.
Yeah.
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 But
yeah. So, things you can do. Look through your camera roll on your phone. Look at pictures like a pet or your kids or your friends or your spouse or whatever it is that brings you joy. The flowers in the backyard, the little buzzy bees that you took pictures of over the weekend. Whatever makes you happy, look at that and you'll feel better.
Yeah.
Start your day off with a positive self-statement based in fact.
Yeah.
Well, this is hard for women, I think. I think it can be hard to be because we don't always believe the positive things that are based in fact that we could say about ourselves. We don't always necessarily believe them.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
And he even says, if you're in a bad mood, odds are you won't believe yourself if it's not based on fact. So the more specific the statement, the better chance you will have of actually believing it and that it can actually help you. So instead of saying, I'm the best parent ever.
Right. Yeah.
That's not based in fact. I'm a good parent because I did this specific thing. I took my kids to the park yesterday. Everybody ate a vegetable.
Yeah. Small wins. Celebrate small wins,
yes.
low-hanging fruit.
Yes. Yeah. Compliment 3 people every day.
Oh, that's nice. That's a good one.
That many days, I have to admit, that would mean that I would compliment the people in my house.
Yeah.
And no one else. Because there are enough days, especially lately, because we had a little incident with a vehicle. And so we're down a vehicle for now. So my son and I are sharing.
Yeah.
And so there are days when I just don't leave.
Right.
So, yeah. Which is fine to compliment, but they also don't believe me as much.
No, this is where the internet might be helpful.
Well,
the social media might be helpful in this way to look through and see who you might be able to make a comment on somebody that's their post and say something kind about them, or look through the birthday things if you're a Facebook person and kind of decide, okay, these are the people I actually really know,
right?
And I'm going to post on their page and I'm going to say something specific about them instead of just a happy birthday.
Go. That's
right.
Excellent.
That's a way you could incorporate it, I think.
Yeah.
Or you could text somebody.
Well, that's true.
You could just text somebody and say, "Hey, I was just thinking about you," and blah 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 or whatever. Here's
a compliment about your character.
Yeah.
I mean, you can compliment people on their looks. So if I go to the grocery store, if I see somebody with fun color hair or an interesting shirt or something, oh, that's great.
Yeah, there you go.
And
easy.
It always makes them feel good, and I feel good. And they actually did a study where they asked college freshmen to give 3 compliments a day for 20 days. And at the end of 20 days, they had higher self-confidence. And they said it was difficult to tell if it was just a change in their brain, or if because when you give somebody a compliment, they tend to compliment you back.
They often do.
But what a nice thing to do. Walk around telling people, something nice about them.
Exactly.
That was a really nice thing you did back there, helping somebody get that thing off the high shelf.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it is. Those small things. It doesn't erase your mood completely, but it can like turn the tide a little bit.
Sure.
And then you can start to capitalize on those things. And the other part of it is not, I think, not ignoring it. Just because you're going to choose to improve your mood right then doesn't mean you want to then dismiss why it might have been.
Right.
Right? Like, okay, for us, it might be hormones. Well, yeah, dismiss that, whatever. Like that's not that's just a fact of life. And then these techniques can really help.
Right.
If it's grief that's fresh, it may just be about getting through the day and improving your mood well enough to then grieve well instead of grieve unhealthy.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so you can't ignore things that might be causing a mood for a really good reason. Right. Moods are bigger than emotions or feelings,
Right.
like, so that you kind of have to keep in check too.
Right.
But, because a mood lasts longer.
Sure.
So a lot of times we can kind of change our like immediate feelings. Right. And kind of go a different way. And then that might change your overall mood in the long run. I don't know.
Nice. That's good. Helpful. Jackson is constantly surprised at the ease with which Ellis is able to influence people. Even Leslie, the kidnapped therapist, has feelings of gratefulness toward Ellis about his captivity.
Countertransference, people.
I mean,
red flag.
Yeah. So Ellis thinks people in general are just good at being grateful. No.
Wrong.
Yeah.
Wholesale wrong.
Right. So that's not true as far as I can tell. But gratitude can be a brain changer.
Yeah, and more and more research is coming out about this, and it's hard to. I think it's a hard thing to isolate.
Sure.
In the work of studying gratitude, it's so hard to isolate gratitude itself.
Well, let's talk about a little study they did at Berkeley.
All right.
Consciously counting your blessings tends to make people happier and less depressed.
Right.
So they did a study with about 300 mostly college students who were seeking some mental health counseling at Berkeley University. And most of them were struggling with depression or anxiety. And so they were, not great to begin with. So what they did is they broke these participants up into 3 groups. And all 3 groups received counseling services. So that was their constant. The first group was instructed to write 1 letter of gratitude each week for 3 weeks.
Okay.
The second group was asked to write in a journal about their deepest thoughts and feelings about a negative experience. And then the third group was the control group that didn't they didn't have any kind of writing exercise.
Okay.
So, of course, they made sure to declare it's not definitive, but that they found that gratitude might unshackle us from our toxic emotions. That when people used fewer negative emotion words in their letters, that they were significantly more likely to report better mental health. It was the lack of negative emotion, not the abundance of positive words, that explained the mental health gap between the gratitude writing and the other writing group.
Right. Yeah. And this has been shown in other ways too that are like very similar, where, as like in research in positive psychology and some of these other places, of research, including work, like looking at work, the best way to improve something is to remove the negative.
Okay.
Not add positive. Which is why the gratitude stuff can be a little, okay, because, if there's nothing really negative to remove, and you start looking at gratitude, you could probably expect a good increase in wellness, especially if there's a major depression and things like that. That can be really helpful. If you have an actual problem in your life, that effect is going to be a lot lower. So you're talking to college students.
Yeah.
That is hard to generalize to somebody who is homeless and tell them to write a letter.
Right. Well, yes.
Because you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So in instances of real trouble, like you might be depressed for a reason.
Right.
Right? Because there's kind of a difference between an emotional disorder and an emotional injury. You might be depressed because of a circumstance.
Right.
Gratitude might help might be a nudge to help talk about other things and remind you of life, or I don't know, whatever.
Right.
But it won't have the same effect size in that situation as it does college students, or even just like a disorder where it's happening without direct cause, and therefore we have the opportunity to add good.
Right.
And so it's really helpful. So that's why it makes it so hard. Like, where is it useful? Where is it not?
Right.
Well,
yeah, for your average person.
Person.
Yeah. Who's trying to deal with this.
Yeah. Because if it's grief, maybe not.
Right.
It's the person. Yeah.
You can't take away the negative of them not being there anymore.
You can't.
Two negatives don't make a positive, because if you bring them back, it's not good.
It's not good.
It's not going to be helpful.
Yeah. So the gratitude might help nudge, but but in other situations. So it's an interesting, kind of thing. Plus, I don't think people do gratitude right.
I don't think most people
Because most people do gratitude by figuring out who they have it better than.
Right.
And that's because I count your blessings. Like when I was growing up, count your blessings included, well, you have a house and other people don't.
Yeah. No. Yes.
This is
no.
But
The count the blessings need to be, I'm grateful for the roof over my head, not when other people don't have it, but just because I am safe right now.
Right. Because it's like
not in comparison to anything.
Don't do if you want this to work, which it can, the research is great about it. Don't do the it could be worse.
No.
That's not gratitude.
God,
but
that.
I don't know if you did, but in my culture growing up, that was considered what gratitude was. I had to relearn what gratitude was.
Not so much when I was a kid, because my mom hated it when my grandmother pulled that on her. My grandma would say there are children starving in China.
Yeah.
And my mom was like, send them this food because I don't want it.
Yeah.
So it didn't work for her. So she never put that on me.
Oh, that's
and
good.
So culturally, I didn't get it from inside the house.
I don't think I got it from inside the house either.
Okay.
I think that was all outside the house.
Okay.
Yeah. Interesting. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the write a letter thing.
Yeah. And actually the gratitude helps even if you don't share it. Only 23% of the participants actually mailed the letter.
Oh, see? And that's that's a helpful exercise.
Right. And it takes time.
Yeah.
You actually have to take some time with it. Just like grieving. It takes time. Mm-hmm. Ellis needed maybe a little more time.
He did.
Yep. And gratitude has a lasting effect on the brain. The fMRI scanner measured brain activity from each group when they did a pay it forward task. Mm-hmm. And when the people felt more grateful, their brain activity was distinct from brain activity related to guilt and the desire to help a cause out of guilt. Mm. So if you were feeling grateful because somebody else had helped you, then your brain activity is different. It's actually better activity, like more productive.
That's super cool.
Yeah. That's why you do like studies, universities and stuff, because you get funding to be able to like have the equipment to do the things.
You get to see the real things.
Real life.
Okay.
So remember we talked about the biologically made, renewable, biodegradable plastic substitutes.
No, the replacement.
Real. Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Replacements.
Yes, see, I remember.
When I make my notes, I try and use a variety of vocabulary.
That's good.
That's why when I write it down, if I use the same word several times, I'll try and find a synonym for it. Yeah. So that, because it sounds better.
I do that.
This is the work that I do for you, podcast listeners. I look at thesaurus.com.
And you know what? We are grateful for it.
Thank you.
We are.
Yeah, it's such a nice compliment.
I love us today. This is great.
So it's not all good news, unfortunately.
No. Oh, no.
So Anthropocene magazine, which we talked about before.
Okay.
The chemistry magazine, said that they did some studies on the biodegradable plastics.
Okay.
And unfortunately, the news isn't all that great.
Oh, no.
About, well, it's not horrible because some of them do break down. But
Okay.
it depends on the circumstances quite a lot.
Okay.
Unfortunately. So they had sample bags, 5 different types of bags that were biodegradable,
right,
is how they're marketed. And they put them in different environments. And they tracked over the course of 3 years how they deteriorated.
All right.
Okay. Over the 3 years, no single type of bag reliably broke down in all environments. So submerged in seawater, the compostable bag disintegrated and disappeared within 3 months.
Oh.
That sounds good, except they can't tell for sure if it broke down into harmless components.
Right, like microplastic kind of problem that we have.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So if there's a compostable plastic bag,
like the doggy bags that say they're compostable.
What that means is that it'll break down within a specified period of time at a commercial composting facility.
Oh.
Do you know how many of those bags end up at a commercial composting facility?
None. Come on.
None.
People use those so that they can pick up the dog poo and then throw it into the woods or throw it by the side of the trail and think that that's going to...
Oh, no.
I'm like, really, you're better just to let the poo do that if they don't. If
you're not going to pick it up, right?
Yeah, like or just pick it up and throw it into it if you're going to do that.
Yeah.
The whole point of picking up the poo is so we don't step in it.
Right.
That's all.
Or you don't leave it on your neighbor's yard.
Right. Like we don't want to step on it. We don't smell it or we want it to go away.
Right. Yeah. So, unfortunately, when people see bags as eco-friendly, they're less likely to reuse or recycle them, and they're slightly more likely to litter with them.
Oh, so sad.
It it's good that we're coming up with these technologies.
Progress.
This is what we say. We're going to celebrate incremental progress and still try and do better.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So... in the lab, they had the biomass to try and create carbon capturing concrete. And it was 10,000 times as dense as an average plant material. And that's not real.
Okay.
But there are biomass that gets used. And there are a lot of products that are made from biomass.
Oh.
So I thought I would talk about the real life products that are made from biomass.
Tell us about this.
So, fuel.
Oh, well, okay.
Ethanol counts as biomass.
Gotcha. Okay,
Right.
I'm making a connection here. Because chemistry, not my thing.
Right. 98% of gasoline in the United States has some amount of ethanol in it.
Right. Oh, gosh, I know.
Because
if you have a boat, you know.
Yeah. And it drastically reduces the carbon emissions, and it's...
Yeah, and it's great. It's great. Terrible for boats.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Cosmetics and perfumes. So if there's acetone in your nail polish, it can be made using fermented plant sugars.
Oh, okay.
So there are ways to that we had. It's interesting because cosmetics used to be entirely natural, made from a variety of different things, and then they went to a much more industrial sorts of materials, which they realized wasn't great. And now they're back to more natural as they're able.
Right.
Yeah. Food additives and nutritional supplements.
Like nutritional yeast?
Oh, maybe.
Because we love nutritional yeast.
Love nutritional yeast.
Which, by the way, an ongoing contest is to rename it in my household. Yeah. We want to rename it as something that, like a condiment that you might be like, oh, mustard, ketchup, this thing that's not named nutritional yeast. Like something.
It can take the place of Parmesan cheese.
Oh, for sure. Always does. It's good on popcorn.
Yeah.
Because it's like cheesy flavored. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good.
It is good. But when you see something that has omega-3 fatty acids.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So that could be from fish oils, or it could be from algae.
Okay, yeah, all right.
Detergents and cleaning products.
Yeah.
Again, a thing that used to be entirely natural.
Yes.
And then it got industrialized and they used a bunch of chemicals. And now we're back to maybe some of the old things were not so bad when it comes at least to cleaning products.
Yeah.
Let's use some of the more natural things rather than, causing noxious gases in a home that could kill the inhabitants.
Yeah.
And then plastics and other materials, which we've already talked
Right.
about. That was biomass.
Yeah.
That's an actual usage of biomass, not a round, dense green plant thing like what they had in the office.
It was really super funny, though.
It was really funny.
It was cool.
It's no wonder that carbon capturing concrete would be such a game changer environmentally.
For real.
Because right now, it is extremely damaging to the environment to make concrete.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not great. I mean,
No, it's the most widely used construction material in the world.
it is.
And 7 to 8% of all global CO2 emissions are due to concrete production.
That's crazy, right? It's crazy.
It is crazy.
And then have you seen the stuff come out about ancient Rome? Like they study the structures there and the concrete there because it's self-healing. It's driven researchers bananas because they don't understand how these things are still standing. But what they've observed is that a crack will be there and then the crack will kind of go away, not get worse, right? What they've realized, they're using limestone in the mix in such a way that when it rains, the chemistry is such that it becomes wet concrete again.
And it fills itself in.
That's why. It's like if we could figure out how to it's taken us this long to figure this out. And then if we could do that, our concrete production at least would build things that were far better.
Right.
Right? That would reduce the need for replacing and redoing and Yeah. It was really interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. There's a company in Alabama called Carbon Built.
Okay.
So concrete is made of an aggregate called cement.
Right.
Right. And it's really cement that is the issue when it comes to the carbon emissions. So they're using a proprietary mix of locally sourced low carbon material to make their own cement.
Okay.
All right. And then they're taking carbon that's been captured from other places and pumping it into the manufacturing process to strengthen it.
Ooh. Well, that's interesting. That's not far off from what they said they were trying to do in the lab.
Right. That is basically what they're trying to do. They're finding a way to capture the carbon and then use it to make the concrete so it actually is a sink for it. This is more, it's doing a little bit of that, but so little that it's basically negligible. But if they can just not have all of the carbon emissions, all of the CO2 emissions in the manufacturing, they can basically make it carbon neutral, which is what this company is trying to do.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. Super cool. Now, the National Resources Defense Council, the NRDC, had an article in 2021 about how they're trying to make it carbon negative concrete.
Okay.
Doing exactly what Ellis is trying to do.
Right.
Is make it a sink where you're there. So they've got a company in California that's doing something similar where they capture their own CO2 emissions and then pump them back into the concrete. It makes it stronger.
That's amazing.
And lessens their emissions. And the hope is that they'll be able to capture carbon from the atmosphere, put it into the concrete, and seal it up.
That's so cool.
And, with that, it's not like a tree, which is great, because trees help with this sort of thing. But once you cut down the tree and then use the tree somewhere and burn the tree, then the carbon goes back into the air. It's
Right.
a recycling process.
Right,
This
right.
would be a longer term solution.
Interesting.
So we're getting there.
Okay. Very cool.
So there's a running joke that scientist Luna has a boyfriend that she doesn't like very much.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Lord.
pretty funny. So love Panky. 10 reasons why people choose to stay in loveless relationships.
Okay.
Arranged marriages, which is not the situation here. Out of guilt.
That's her.
That's a little bit, I think, for her.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest thing. Out of a sense of duty, you might stay. You might have a different kind of love, which I would say if you stay married long enough, you're going to have less of the initial, very strong love feelings and have a more mature love. Yeah. The fear of being alone.
Oh,
I think that's maybe a little Luna
that's
too.
also a little
Yeah.
Luna. Yeah.
Dependence.
That's very true, too.
You might be dependent on one another. In this climate, financial stability. It's hard to make it alone.
Yeah. True.
Yeah. You might have legal matters. It might be citizenship or adoption or a variety of different things. If you're having legal troubles because your partner is being accused of a crime, you might stay married because that provides some protection against you having to testify against them.
Right.
So if you have reasons that you don't want them to go to jail.
Yeah. Then you might stay.
Yeah. There's some people who have self-imposed deadlines. They don't want to grow old alone, or they want to have a family. And so they hit their time when they need to be married or give up on that dream.
Yeah.
And so they settle for whomever they're dating.
Yeah.
Not great. Narcissism. There are a lot of people who agree to be in relationships because it makes them feel wanted and needed. Being adored validates their existence at the expense of someone else's feelings.
Yeah. There you go. Yep. I think we've all experienced, or at least observed, not experienced,
Sure.
Experienced by observation,
Sure.
maybe. At least all of those once
Yes.
in our lifetime.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe not the citizenship thing.
Well, I
Maybe.
mean, legal matters. I've known people who stayed
Yeah.
married because they were like, he goes down, I go down too, and they're not looking at me.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. And I'm the only one who knows enough. So I guess we'll stay married.
Well, gotta do what you gotta do, man.
So therapist Leslie might be exhibiting a few signs of Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. So basically, Stockholm syndrome refers to the idea that hostages develop a psychological bond with their captors. And it's actually named for a bank heist that happened in Stockholm, Sweden.
Yes.
Where they had captives and they ended up feeling for their captors so much. Evidently, the police treated these captors like they were dispensable. They're the captives like they were dispensable. And so, you know, maybe that had something to do with we really feel for these people who have given us food and water, and safety is sort of, even though they didn't let us go because you basically were willing to let us die.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Survival instinct kicks in.
Right.
You start knowing how to survive.
Right.
Leslie knew how to start living luxuriously. And so this
Yes.
may apply, but only a little, because I'm
Right.
thinking, I think he saw a meal ticket there and was like, this life is awesome.
This basement is nicer than anywhere I've ever
Yeah.
lived.
Like, now I get to throw parties and do whatever I want. Like, I don't know.
Yep. And the most well-known Stockholm survivor is Patty Hearst.
Yes.
So but that's a different story for another day. Unstable explores grief in a fictional situation, but with a lot of humor. More and more stand-up comedians are using their grief to craft humorous shows.
They are.
So the New York Times has this whole huge long article that's really great. They have the listen option on it is actually really good.
Okay.
So the author, Jason Zinnemann, reads it himself, but it also has comedian clips interspersed, and it was really worth it. The pandemic absolutely contributed to the idea that grief sometimes has to be funny.
Yeah.
We have to find the levity in it. And he talks about how it really is the sign of a healthy artistic medium when you can have these big changes in it.
Yeah.
That it's an exciting development in popular culture.
Yeah.
That we can, and not everything has to be completely funny all the time. So Drew Michael, who's a comedian, said comedy was mining sadness and transforming it into balloon animal to make it palatable for an audience. I'm like, oh, well, that's fair. And then Hannah Gadsby had a show called Nanette.
Okay.
It's on Netflix and it is fantastic.
Okay.
I love Hannah Gadsby. She is so funny. But Nanette is this really, she's got a lot of funny parts, but there's some really hard parts too.
Yeah.
And she said in that special that always going for the joke can stunt your growth.
Yeah.
She really leaned into the hard bits, and it was really great. And then John Mulaney has a new special called Baby J. And also extremely funny. But he talks a lot about, a very hard time in his life when they had an intervention because he was coked out of his mind.
Oh, man.
On a regular basis, all the time.
Yeah.
And it's an awful, horrible time in his life. And it's so freaking funny.
Yeah.
It's so funny. And he kind of even pokes at when he was like in an elementary school and, somebody's grandparent died. They got a lot of attention.
Oh, yeah.
And like how jealous he was of the attention the other people were getting. And, it's like, oh, okay. But that is like grief.
Yeah.
That is like poking the fun at grief. And, I can really appreciate that. It makes them more relatable. It's not just a joke about, airplane food or
right. Yeah. And not just necessarily observational from an outside perspective.
Right.
Like, okay. So, well, first of all, John Crist wrote a book and it's funny because he talks a lot about that actually in the book. It was really good. And then, but like Taylor Tomlinson, she has this one bit that she talks about how like, cause she has some, some mental health. And she talks a lot about it and she knows how to do exactly that. And she kind of opens it up by saying something like, I wasn't going to talk about this, but then I needed new material. So I was like, fire sale, everything goes. And it's so funny because from there, she's masterful at talking about all of that and like even saying some like really good statements where people are like applauding, like it's funny. But it's also like, yes, like you're saying the thing that needs to be said. Oh, and now I'm laughing, crying. It's very funny.
Yes. It's great. Good stuff. So I like it. I like
comedy is good for the soul.
That's right. It is. And the hardest things in life are a little easier to deal with when you can laugh a little bit about it. So.
And we're the only species that can.
Exactly. At least that we know of.
Yet. Yeah. Cats are like somewhere a cat went, whatever.
Just
I laugh
because
at you all the time.
Just because we don't laugh like you do doesn't mean we're not laughing at you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's time for us to take a bit of a break.
Yeah. Summer.
It's summer. It's, harder with children at home. Life is just it's not busier. It's just busy in a different way.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So we'll be taking a little break.
We will, but that doesn't mean we're not going to have fresh new content for you. I have lots of really fabulous outtakes. Of course, there's flubs and little mess ups and things that we do, but there are whole, discussions that I pull out of the podcast because,
time.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to sit here for 2 hours.
No, but we can. And we do. So that we have a lot of material for you.
That's right. So we do have lots of fun stuff. And for as long as we're gone, you will have fresh episodes waiting for you. So be sure to check it out. Thank you so much for listening. We know you make a choice when you listen to us. We don't just come on the radio, and we really appreciate it. Tell a friend, rate and review. Find us on the socials. And until next time, be safe, be kind, and wash your hands.
Bum, bum, bum. Da, 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 da.